Hello, everyone. Welcome to Master B2B, the world's first and only unwebinar series. This is a debate style format, folks. We're excited you're with us today. My name is Brian Beck, and I'm thrilled to be joined again today by Andy Hoare, my partner in this Master B2B effort. Those of you who don't know Andy, he is a longtime expert in e-commerce for B2B companies. He's the CEO of Paradigm B2B. He led the e-commerce practice from B2B for Forrester Research for 7 years. He's a very well-respected authority in this stuff. And Andy, I'm thrilled to be joined again with you today on this important topic.
Well, thanks, Brian. And you notice you threw well-respected in this time. I appreciate that.
No worries.
So for those of you who don't know Brian, very similar resume, equally impressive. He's an author, a book called Billion Dollar B2B E-Commerce. It's on my bookshelf someplace. I think it's above the fold there, but it's a very good book. And I always say this is a very good forward, which I happen to have written. And so Brian's been in around B2B, around e-commerce for about 20 years. He was a practitioner, Harbor Freight Tools, right, and PacSun.
Yep.
So B2C and B2B end of things. And then he's been a consultant for many years. And he and I used to see each other in the speaker circuit. So very thrilled to have Brian with me today on this very interesting topic.
Exactly right, Andy. So thanks for that intro. And, folks in the audience, this is really for you and your participation. This is a debate. We want to hear from you. Put your comments, questions into the chat field here on the right, the Q&A field. We're going to get to as many of those as we can. And what we were creating here at Master B2B really is a community of B2B folks. And we want your participation in this. We have a great group of panelists. We call them contenders today to debate a very important issue in B2B e-commerce. We also have a sponsor, that's Avalara, and we're going to have Avalara participate in the debate as well. So they get to ask the same tough questions everyone else does. At the end of each of our 3 rounds, folks, those of you who haven't participated before, you'll have a chance to vote on the key question in that round. And we're going to reveal at the end of the unwebinar how you voted. So stick around for that. So Andy, today, we're talking about another hot topic. It's all about profitability killers in B2B e-commerce and how do you convert them to, or can you convert them to customer experience advantages? And this one also, we have a great group of people joining us. I'm looking at the list of folks here who are logging on. We've got several people from 3M. As usual, I see some familiar faces here. Jeremy from Reinders. I see Gurish from Dawn Foods is on. Bob McKinley from Beckman Coulter is on. New face there. We've got folks from Stanley Black & Decker here. Toyota. Nick is back, one of our contenders from an earlier unwebinar. Uline is here. We got Ferguson. Marco George from Zulake Pharma is back. Adrian's back from JJ Keller. This is really a community of folks who are leading these efforts at their companies, Andy, and it's really a who's who of B2B. So today the topic is all about, is it possible to conquer the hidden killers of B2B profitability? And this stuff is it is in fact hidden, right? So Andy, what's really at stake here? What are we talking about today? What's the issue?
Well, we're actually going to talk about 3. There are several, but in the interest of time, we're going to go for 3. And this is what I like to think about as kind of the underbelly. Not everybody considers it that, but to me, it's the underbelly of e-commerce. It's the stuff that people tend to think of as either operational necessities and therefore kind of cost drivers, or as strategic imperatives and an ability to actually generate revenue and enhance a customer experience. No surprise, our 2 teams are going to fall into those 2 categories. One's going to say, look, this is about really minimizing the damage, my interpretation. The other group is going to say, no, you're missing an opportunity if you don't turn this into a competitive differentiator.
It's interesting, Andy, you raise that point because, these, I do feel like these are hidden. Listen, I was a VP of e-com, as you mentioned, for 17 years. And in the consumer side, where I spent a lot of my career, these are things that are really actually quite important to understand. And you can, in fact, translate them to advantages. I'm going to give you one example. So in my career in e-commerce and B2C, we would use shipping as a competitive lever to actually drive loyalty and repeat customer purchases. Did you know, Andy, that on the consumer side, the number one reason that consumers drop or leave shopping carts abandoned is surprise shipping charges in the cart, in the checkout process. Now, the question we have to deal with today is, Do these same issues apply in B2B e-commerce? Or is that really just a B2C thing? So for example, is Amazon Prime like shipping a necessity in B2B e-commerce, or are B2B customers more willing to wait? They're more patient. They're used to receiving orders, and other things are more important, like scheduling time for the delivery. When am I going to get it versus getting it fast and free? So those are some of the issues we're going to, I think, tackle today.
Yeah, and in fact, when we're on the shipping issue in particular, it's kind of it's a different animal in B2B because it's influenced by B2C, like many things in B2B are, but it's also not influenced by B2C. I mean, like you just pointed out, there are many B2B companies, buyers who, I don't want to use this term too loosely, but they don't care about the cost of shipping because they care more about accuracy. They care more about timing. They care more about, is this what we're really looking for, as opposed to can we get it there, inexpensively. They have different priorities, and so this is one of the things we're actually going to talk about today.
That's right, Andy. And it's interesting. We asked this question, as we do always in about a week before our unwebinar. We ask our question to our community of folks who through our LinkedIn profiles, and we asked this question actually, and this relates to shipping as well. Why do B2B companies keep thinking they don't need to offer Amazon Prime-like shipping, right? And we open the floodgates as usual. We got 7,000 comments and shares and likes and all the rest. But I want to read just for context on this one issue, and then talk briefly about the others as well. Billy Haynes, the VP of e-commerce at Haynes Supply, which is an industrial distributor, right? And they get a good amount of their revenue from e-com. He weighed in and he said, B2B procurement professionals expect and gravitate towards B2C luxuries and functionality, such as fast and free shipping. Interesting, he called it a luxury. The Amazon Prime effect has penetrated the B2B world. That's his opinion. Now, we had someone else weigh in, Michael Vax, who's been in the industry for a long time and is a consultant. He noticed while some companies are looking for fast shipping, for others, the ability to request specific delivery times and dates is more important. So, is this just a cost of doing business, or is it a competitive advantage for you if you have fast and free shipping? So we're going to talk about that as one of our topics in round, I think it's round 3 or 2.
Yeah, that's going to be the debate, but not to be lost, we're going to talk about tax compliance.
Yes.
And also credit issuance, which are, credit issuance in particular is a real B2B topic, and one I think that's really quite misunderstood, and it's tolerated. The old way of doing things is just tolerated, and we don't live in the old world. We should be thinking about how can we turn this into, a better customer experience. So we're going to get into that as well.
Did you know, Andy, that the average credit process is over a week from the time you actually submit a credit application to time? So I'm on the advisory board of this company called Credit Key, and I know this stuff because I talk to them often, and they accelerate this process, and it's amazing. I'll share some of the results a little later, but it's amazing what happens when you compress that credit authorization process. And just briefly on the tax question, this is a big deal, right? So many companies use tax as a reason not to do e-commerce, and to me it's a tail wagging the dog, Andy. This is companies that are saying, hey, I don't want to expose myself to tax collection, but this has been stalled for 20 years, and we're going to hear from Avalar today a little bit about that. So it's not a reason. There's so many excuses companies use not to do e-commerce, and that's not. I don't think that should be one of them. We're going to talk about that and debate it today a little bit as well. So, at any rate, that's a good amount of setup. Do you have anything else you want to add, Andy, before we jump into our contenders?
Let's get in it.
All right, let's go. Let's bring in our contenders, and we're going to introduce our 2 teams. So, in a debate, you need teams to debate. So, we have some fantastic folks today on the line. So, I'm leaning on the evolutionary team here today, and I'm going to introduce my team, Andy. These are folks that believe that a lot of this is about cost of doing business. This is not necessarily about enhancing the customer journey. It's about meeting the customer expectation. It's a cost of being in e-commerce. Our first contender, hailing from my home state, sort of. Your guys are based there, Dan, right? In New Jersey, sort of hailing. So we get a little Jersey here. This is all good. Watch your kneecaps. This is Dan. Give him heck. Dan is the COO of CDE Fasteners, which is a leading distributor of fasteners, industrial products, again, based in New Jersey. Dan, when you're not sending stupid concepts directly to the trash compactor, you're dealing with a lot of these issues related to, these profitability killers. Dan says, and he knows how to get to the point. He says, don't waste your time trying to make basic tools into a competitive advantage. Dan, welcome.
That's right. Thank you very much, Brian and Andy, for hosting. Pleasure to be here, coming to you live from the Garden State.
All right, excellent. The Garden State, and there are gardens there, Dan. It's not all toxic.
It's true.
It's a nice state. Shut up, Andy. All right, our next contender, hailing not from New Jersey, but not too. I don't think too far away. Colin the Crusher Cronin. Colin stand aside as he pulverizes poor proposals with perfect efficiency. I love that alliteration. Colin, so happy you're here. He's the director of digital commerce channels at the global diagnostics manufacturer Leica Biosystems. Colin, you know how to prioritize. You say success comes from delivering differentiated digital experiences, not trying to make operational necessities into loyalty drivers. I love that quote. Welcome, Colin.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Andy. I'm excited to be here. More importantly, I'm excited to do some crushing.
All right. Ooh, he brought the crushers. That's sweet, man. I like that. All right, Andy, introduce your losing team.
Well, here you go, guys. You guys can bring all the tools you want, but you don't have the Sardinian Slayer or the Asphyxiator. And you probably can't even pronounce Asphyxiator because I struggle with it myself. So let's go first with Ricardo. Ricardo, the Sardinian Slayer Caruso. And he really is from Sardinia, I believe. So he's got the accent to match. But his
the Sardinian Slayer is here to crush the competition.
I love it. Awesome.
He didn't let me finish the introduction. He was so excited to get in on that. So 15 years of experience in digital transformation. Ricardo's been around quite a bit on this. So he knows a thing or two about where to put time and effort to find success. Ricardo currently serves as the Senior Director of E-commerce at diagnostics leader Cepheid. He was earlier at Illumina, another really good company as well, and says, we deepen customer loyalty and capture new customers by making it easier to do business with us versus our competitors. So Ricardo, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joining the winning team, I know Brian struggles to grasp that concept here, but joining the winning team, which is Team Revolutionary, by the way, and this is the group that says, hey, let's build this stuff into the customer experience. Let's not assume it's a cost of doing business and try and minimize its effect. Let's actually build it into the journey and make something of it. Is Sylvia, the Asphyxiator Aguirre. She's a VP at Avalara, and she's going to explain some of the nuances of the tax stuff, which I'm not sure really anybody understands. Hopefully she does. So we like to say, keep your oxygen supply close when dealing with the Asphyxiator, who currently serves as the Vice President of Certificate Management at Avalara. With over 20 years of experience, Sylvia has seen firsthand the value of making the buyer's job easier, and says easing tax compliance and delivering a seamless fulfillment process on digital channels will keep your customers coming back. Seems like an obvious statement, but it's an actually really important statement. So Sylvia, welcome.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, Andy and Brian. Thank you for having me, and I'm ready to asphyxiate.
All right. She went for the jugular. All right. Excellent. Well, Andy, I think it's about that time. Are we ready? Let's rumble. Where's our bell? I got the time, Andy. This one's all you.
All right. So first topic is sales tax. I just mentioned it's complex, it's difficult, and thankfully we've got some experts here, and we've got some people with some pretty strong and compelling opinions on this one. So we're going to ask a simple question, and one that I hear a lot actually, which is, should you be completely transparent about sales taxes before checkout, or wait until the very end of the checkout process to completely reveal what that sales tax burden is going to be? So we're going to go to the winning team, my team, Team Revolutionary first, who would argue here that, yes, it's better to be honest early. So Ricardo, let's go to you first. What are your thoughts on this? When do you display sales tax? At the beginning or wait until the end?
And the Sardinian layer says yes to sales taxes before checkout. And there is one simple reason. Ask your customers. Your customers will tell you that if you don't disclose sales taxes before checkout, they're going to find themselves with an additional cost adding up to about like 12% when they have to submit, the purchase. Now, every time they exceed by more than 10% the purchase ordered amount, they have to go back to the drawing board, and you're going to get like a very angry customers. You're going to be losing sales. So it's an absolutely yes, to the point that I put the entire team to design and bring sales taxes and shipping up front in the cart.
Wow, so you completely designed the journey. That's a heavy investment. That's going all in. So Sylvia, you live in this world. You deal with this on a daily basis, probably more than anybody else on this webinar. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I mean, Ricardo is completely right. It is best to have everything up front. Yes, you should show your cards on the table. We're not 20 years ago. We have a whole decision, Wayfair in South Dakota, that is enforcing everybody really to charge sales taxes. So it's not a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise. It should be right there for everybody to see. So when you get to the shopping cart, you know exactly what you're going to be charged.
Well, I think there's another team that disagrees with this or would take issue with it. And let's give them a chance to weigh in. So let's go to Team Evolutionary here. I think it's going to argue that, hey, that's all fine and good, but you want to hook them first. You want to get them to invest in the purchase, and then you can always tell them later the quote unquote bad news about the sales tax. So Dan, let's go to you first. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think most buyers expect to pay taxes unless their company themselves are tax exempt. And I don't think it's dishonest to wait till the sales tax is shown at the end, because what are we doing? Are we tracking location data? Are we asking for your zip code up front to calculate the shipping and the taxes? Maybe we don't need to charge sales tax in your state. If you're drop shipping, I think there's only 15 states right now that require sales tax. So that means the majority of the states aren't required to charge sales tax. So there's nothing there at the end. If you try to, because there's already proven programs out there that do this for you, let them run the calculations for you. New York sales tax is different in every single zip code. If you're dealing with Europe, you're dealing with not only different currencies, but you're dealing with all kinds of different taxation rules between all the different countries in the EU.
Interesting point. Colin, you want to add something to this?
I think Dan said it perfectly. Those are all great considerations. And something else that B2B businesses often have to deal with is your digital commerce platform doesn't stand by itself. You probably have hooks into other systems, whether that's ERP, something like a Vertex tax engine. And that means every time you calculate tax, your commerce platform is having to call out to these systems and run these complex calculations. You don't want your buyers getting stuck somewhere, before the shopping cart or even at the checkout flow because you've got poor performance due to all these calls. So make that streamlined process as easy as possible. I've seen checkout flows that take 10 minutes to get through because you're sitting there recalculating these things and integrating with all these different platforms. It's a very different experience than what you would find, say, going on Target.com and just buying, a pack of goods for your home.
Okay, these are good considerations. Well, let's move on to the next question, and it's somewhat related to this. So should companies, particularly manufacturers, and we have a couple on the call here, so this would be good, just confront the tax nexus issue and get to selling directly via commerce and marketplaces? Or should they hold off and instead allow channels to handle the direct selling? This is a discussion about marketplaces a little bit, but it's related here. So let's go to Team Evolutionary first. You may have an opinion, yes or no, on this one. I'm just curious. What do you think? Should you sell everywhere or sell direct? Or let's go to Colin first on this one.
So I'd say if you try to focus on everywhere, you're not going to perform well anywhere. At the end of the day, with B2B, you have to be very strategic at where you're going to invest your time and your money because most teams have limited bandwidth, limited resources. So where are you going to be able to get the most impact or the most return? And that might be a marketplace. It may not be because in some industries, maybe your customers aren't buying there. And so you really have to think about where am I going to get the the most bang for my buck. That's I think what it comes down to with B2B.
So Colin, quick follow-up question on this about confronting the nexus issue. You're a brand manufacturer. Did you guys have discussions internally about whether you wanted to confront the tax nexus issue or just pass it off to somebody else?
Yeah, so we do a lot of that ourselves with our internal infrastructure. So we do deal with it, and each channel, I would say that it's a fairly common issue across most channels. It's really more about how you deal with it. So again, our business has a fairly sophisticated, finance department and engine that runs with our ERP system, and we've integrated that fully with our digital commerce platform. When we talk about going outside to other platforms, it gets a little bit more complex, not so much because the process or the need is different, but because how you actually execute on it, how you operationalize it will be different. So if we're going to Amazon or another marketplace, we're gonna have to think about, okay, how do we make sure that we're charging the right tax rates, that we've crossed, all our T's, dotted all our I's with finance, with accounting, because at the end of the day, finance is not happy, you're not gonna be happy either.
That's true most things in life. That's a great point. So Dan, you had a thought on this one too.
I think Colin did a great job describing that. If you're selling on Amazon, Amazon's taking care of the taxes for you, right? If you're using one of these out-of-the-box programs, they're going to calculate it for you, and however their checkout method is. I think you should focus on your content and focus on making their B2B buyer understand the product that you're selling and find the right product that you're selling.
So I know we have 1 minute left, and I wanted to get one quick question in here with a quick comment at a minimum from Sylvia on this one. But should you confront, or should you make the extra effort to ask about tax exempt status up front? So this is a question people have wondered. Should you ask about tax exempt status up front? You live in this world. Again, what's your quick thought on this?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to, if you want to be proactive, if you want to keep your customers happy, if you want to be able to go through a supply chain smoothly, you want to ask these questions up front. I know I didn't answer the question about Nexus previously because I wanted to fight on that one. But the reality is, the decision has been made for everybody. The states want you to register and they want you to collect exemption certificates if you're not going to be collecting taxes. So you have to have proof. So let's do it up front, make the sale, make everybody happy.
Perfect. Well, we've run out of time as usual. So Brian, let's go
to the poll, guys. Thank you, guys. That was a good debate. Thank you very much. Here's your question. Can tax collection be turned into a competitive advantage? Yes or no? Is it just a cost of doing business that companies need to accept? And Andy, it was an interesting debate. I thought, I think there's good points on both sides, but ultimately, I hear, and particularly from manufacturers all the time, that they're afraid to tackle e-commerce because they're worried about taxes. And as Sylvia just said, I mean, these are solutions. There are solutions available to companies to solve for this. Avalar is a great one, and this is not, we're not reinventing things here. Even and I think Dan raised the issue with, or maybe it was Colin, about marketplaces selling on Amazon. I hear companies not wanting to sell on Amazon. Well, guess what, guys? Because of tax, guess what? Amazon actually, because of market facilitator laws, Sylvia can keep me honest here, but because of marketplace facilitator laws, in the vast majority of states, Amazon has to collect and pay the sales tax for you, right? So she hopefully is nodding her head. And so this is not a reason for inaction. Don't stop letting your tax department run your company. You want to make your tax person CEO, go ahead. But at the end of the day, this is solvable. It's not a reason for inaction. Anyway, Andy, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would add one thing too. This came actually up in the LinkedIn conversation, which we didn't even get a chance to address. But if you think people are deterred by collecting tax domestically, what about collecting tax internationally? It gets even more complicated. Maybe we can get Sylvia to weigh in on that one at the end. But you've got to confront this stuff because, again, it's a cost of doing business at a minimum. I would argue that there are ways to make this into part of a good customer experience as well.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Andy, as I talk about in my book a lot, making the buyer's job easier in these kinds of workflows, tax, and we'll talk about shipping and credit in a few minutes, but as you make those things easier, you actually build, I believe, competitive advantage and loyalty for your customer. overall, because you're making the buyer's job less, less full of friction. You're making it easier for them to do business with you. And that is really important in B2B in particular. Okay, we're out of time on that. Thank you guys. Let's bring our panelists back. I've got the next round here. So let's get ready. All right, round 2. Here we go. Up that bell. All right, here we go. Andy, you got time for me? Guys, we're talking about shipping. All right, and we're talking about, is it necessary to accommodate a new shipping and delivery expectation in B2B through e-commerce and just in general for the e-commerce, for the customer in B2B. So my first question to the panelists here is an Amazon-like fast shipping and delivery experience necessary in B2B e-commerce? This is a big question. I'm going to go to Team Revolutionary first, to Mr. Sardinia, the Slayer himself. Mr. Sardinia, what say you on this topic?
Brian is another yes. So Amazon, right? Like you gotta love Amazon. It's a love and hate relationship because they've raised the bar so high, right? And the point is that customers have these high expectations. So there are two topics here. Like one is fast shipping. And I can tell you that the trend over, I'd say, the last 7-8 years has been to have next day shipping. So definitely deliver on the fast shipping. But it was said well at the beginning that in the B2B space, it's paramount for the users to be able to select a date when to expect the products. In my space, especially in life sciences, these are physicians and scientists. They need to know when they're getting, like, let's say, like a frozen package, so that like they can manage that, or they have a long list of patients out there waiting for COVID tests. They cannot just tell them to come back the next day. So transparency is paramount. And in regard, therefore, also about delivery. So estimated delivery date, it's absolutely a winner in B2B.
Interesting. Good point. So let's go to Team Evolutionary, and Colin, I think you have a few thoughts on this. What do you agree with the Slayer over there, or you got a different opinion?
So here's the thing. Of course, everyone wants to receive their product sooner rather than later. I think the question is not so much, do people like that or do people want that in B2B? Is it necessary to deliver a B2B digital commerce experience? And I think, Brian, you said it very well at the beginning. Like, it's more important to figure out how you meet your customer demand. Where are they at? Some products, next day shipping doesn't even make sense. If you think about large capital purchases that require installation, project implementation, integration with IT or other technologies that are on premise. So it's more about thinking about how can you provide the right level of information and the right level of experience that meet the customer where they're at. I think B2B companies might find themselves in a little bit of trouble if they get distracted by trying to pursue this quote unquote prime shipping gold standard, because some cases your workflow might not allow for that.
That's really interesting. And Dan, what do you think on this one?
Is Amazon like shipping necessary? I don't think it's necessary. The B2B buyer is slightly different from your consumer buyer. I think that in B2B, you're talking like wholesale, you're talking bigger objects being shipped. I mean, in the news recently, I've seen Amazon is working on drone deliveries. But that maybe the average package on Amazon is under 5 pounds, right? So it's a whole different monster, the B2C to B2B. You have much bigger objects, you got different trucking companies, you got different distance, different logistics, different packaging sizes. You can try to be as upfront as possible and try to get to an Amazon, but I don't think it's necessary.
Can you win competitive advantage by doing it? That's the question, right? I mean, because if you offer it in a more commoditized category, I think you possibly can. But I would agree with you guys that, yeah, there's certainly types of products where it doesn't make sense. Any thoughts on that? All right, hearing none, I guess I'm right. Question 2.
You're talking to me?
I'm not gonna challenge the point where you just agreed with us. So
excellent. That's good. Well, you guys are on my team, so it's all good. I figured the Slayer might have something to say, but he doesn't. All right. So should shipping be considered, guys? This is the other question. Should shipping be considered a marketing expense? Right? Should sellers subsidize the cost of shipping? So we just talked a little bit about fast fast shipping. But should companies actually subsidize it and think about it? We did this for years on the consumer side. We'd say, we're going to offer free shipping on everything, and it's going to be marketing. So, Dan, what are your thoughts on that one?
Listen, there's no such thing as free shipping. Like, someone's covering the cost somewhere, right? You're either hiding it in the cost of goods or charging everyone a fixed amount, but the shipping's got to come from somewhere. I think I've seen a lot of companies out there that are trying to say free shipping. And when I look at what they're selling, you look at other websites of what they're selling. It's first of all, it's hard to make a comparison to see, like, someone that's offering free shipping, someone that's not. Is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal? I think a lot of these companies are actually losing money because they don't realize the shipping costs, and you don't know the shipping bills a lot of the times until after the customer has received the parts.
You preach it, brother. I like that. Okay, awesome. Hey, Colin, what do you think? I love you. I love the box, by the way.
Yeah, I can't top that. But I think it just comes back to, don't get distracted by trying to chase something that looks shiny on the B2C side. Yes, use it as a lever. You can definitely drive it in promotions, and we do that all the time. But there are often more important things that you want to focus your energy on in a B2B transaction. And on top of that, you might have a hard fight against your commercial or your operations teams. Shipping can be very expensive. We're not talking about $10 for, a replacement cable that you might buy from Amazon. We may be talking about thousands and thousands of dollars in shipping costs for these large products, large orders, or capital purchases. So it's going to be really hard uphill battle to convince, finance and operations that that's a good idea to give away for free.
Apparently, you got to be the Slayer to convince him, because I don't think he agrees with you. Go ahead, Slayer. What do you got?
Absolutely, I don't. You gotta take on that battle. If a company is taking on like additional expenses, that means that they haven't done their due diligence. Do your math, put your ducks in a row, and just make sure that you deliver that seamless and exceptional experience, like, to your customers. Over and over, we have seen also in the B2B space, especially in the commoditized space, that free shipping can lead to an increase in volume of sales by customers by 30%. It's a slam dunk. It's an easy answer, this one, right? And if you are not really, also, companies often deal with their own problems with the shipping fee model. And well, then in that case, don't grieve your customers with your own internal problems. Take care of your problems inside, but deliver that exceptional experience that is going to drive loyalty to the roof and maximize customer lifetime value. Sorry.
Give him heck. Are you going to take that? He just said 30% increase, man.
I think that there's losses. You may see a 30% increase in sales, but you're actually losing money on the back end on the shipping. If you're doing B2B and you're sending pallets all around the country, the trucking industry, the prices change, right? Have you done a freight quote recently? Right? Sometimes the freight quotes are changing by the hour.
Very true.
Yeah,
all right.
Ultimately, use it. Use it as a marketing tactic, but just be careful. I mean, we've seen it with COVID in the last year. Supply chain costs off the chart.
The price of gasoline.
If you don't control that, you might increase your sales, but at the end of the day, the bottom line, where your shareholders are going to care about, it's not going to reflect well.
I didn't hear customers. I didn't hear customers there in any of those answers from the other team.
Oh, come on, Andy. Slayer, go ahead, Slayer. You had something to say there.
Absolutely. Don't transfer your problems, your internal problems, to the customers. There are so many creative ways, right? Embed your costs internally, build like loyalty programs. Over and over, everything says that delivering, making available free shipping is gonna come back many times over back to your, to your company.
The Slayer says, don't transfer your internal problems to your customers. Wow. I'm fighting words there, Slayer. And Sylvia, chime in if you have anything else you want to add on that. I have one more question if we still have time, Andy.
We're out of time, but let's get Sylvia into this one.
All right, go
I
ahead,
was
Sylvia.
just going to say, Slayer, grab the mic.
He doesn't have a mic. He dropped the Slayer.
It doesn't matter.
All right, guys, let's go to our poll question if we're out of time. Thank you. Excellent debate here, guys. Let's go ahead and bring that poll question up. So the question is Amazon Prime like fast shipping and delivery, the experience thereof, necessary in B2B e-commerce? Yes or no? Andy, what'd you think of that one?
It's a tough call here. I mean, I'll be honest. It is, B2C is not like B2B. And B2C, it's a necessity. I mean, it's that standard has already been set. If you don't offer free shipping, especially in the holiday season, forget it, right? B2B is different, but the question is it different enough? And obviously, I've adopted the team of Team Revolutionary with Ricardo and Sylvia, and I think they make a really good point that that standard has arrived. And yes, we can debate where it fits into the cost structure of an actual shipment. And yes, we live in the middle of a supply chain crisis and a pandemic that is fumble with all this stuff. But like I said, it hasn't changed the fact that customers expect this. And so these are all, as the Slayer said, family squabbles that need to be settled internally, and don't expose that, to mix metaphors, dirty laundry to your customers. If they expect and want free shipping, you got to give it to them.
Okay, so I believe that, and again, lived this for a long time. Free shipping is important, and fast shipping in certain product categories. If it's a more commoditized product, if it's a simple to order product, if it's a lower price, I think that needs free shipping. I think B2B companies can capture competitive advantage by offering free and fast Prime-like shipping, because a lot of B2B companies aren't thinking about this. To me, this is a hidden lever that can be used, but you have to manage the cost, Andy. You have to manage the cost side. And I learned this the hard way. I was a COO of a paper products company. We were doing business cards and such. We were overpaying UPS by $1 million a year because we weren't focused on the cost side too. So you have to think about it from a benefit side, but also from a cost side. And there's solutions in the marketplace today that will help you from a big data standpoint, make sure you're paying the right amount for your shipping to FedEx, to all these different companies.
Well, everybody, we've seen some stuff. People said that these prices are embedded for Amazon in the membership fee. Yeah, maybe so. But here's one question I've had for you, Brian, as we move to the next section. Do you really believe 5 years from now we're still having this debate?
No, I think there is free. There's
going. And how do you think it ends?
I think it ends where a good number of these product categories have free shipping. I think that's just where
case closed.
And I know I'm agreeing with your team, but at the end of the day, it is going to be a mix. It's not everything. Scheduling delivery is going to be as or more important. So anyway, we got to move on.
I think that's a fair point. I do think that's a fair point. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's time for round 3. Here's the ding. Well time. All right, Andy, this one's yours. I've got some timer here.
So round 3 is about credit management and credit issuance. And so, we've all seen this, right? There's a B2C version of this too, where you use your credit card. The B2B version of this is you got to buy things on terms. And a lot of times people have, especially project workers, they get paid at the end of the project. They need the terms at the beginning. Sometimes these are large purchases where they have to be financed. We know the use cases around this. The question is, why is it so damn complicated? I mean, we know that, you pointed out at the beginning that it could take 10 days. I mean, from when you make a decision to make a purchase to 10 days later being approved for credit, what happens in 10 days? People walk away. Now, they always used to do that, but maybe they were sort of trapped. Now, it's not even a question. So all these companies have arisen to help, fix this problem. But we're going to have a little debate here. And we're going to talk about the credit application process. And we're going to hear from both sides. Some people are going to argue that, hey, you know what? There's a reason it takes that long. There are some arguments for that. Others are going to say, no, those reasons are legacy reasons. They need to be fixed. So let's go to Team Revolutionary first. And I want to start with Ricardo on this one. Does this process need to fundamentally change by which you issue credit and manage credit with your customers? Or is it great the way it is?
Absolutely, it has to change. Can you imagine customers that want to pay you millions of dollars and you put them on hold for 1 week? It's absolutely insane. But here's the thing. You got to change the process internally. And once again, we have the power as e-commerce practitioners to do magic in the front end. And I'll tell you the magic that I've done a few years back. I brought a few revolutionary features to e-commerce, which was in B2B, unseen, guest checkout, and the ability to purchase systems ranging from $200,000 to $1 million online. You know how that was used by this company? They needed to buy to meet the deadline of a tender. This company from Madrid placed an order at 10 p.m. It was an unknown company to us and used guest checkouts and placed like a big chunky order to our e-commerce. Now, if you don't create this type of possibilities, this type of workflows, then you're going to be losing like big opportunities. So again, focus on the customer, deliver the seamless experience, and then bring your internal problems inside and certainly streamline your process.
So Sylvia, you want to get in on this one as well?
Yeah, I cannot agree again more with Ricardo. I mean, technology has come a long way. And just like with sales taxes, we need to improve the process of collection of credit, anything, right? Documentation, any information that we can gather up front, we should gather. And I think there's real change that is happening as we speak when it comes to a lot of credit companies out there. We need to improve the process so we can get millions of dollars in the door quicker.
Okay, Colin and Dan, now's your chance, your big opportunity to tell us why that's wrong and that no real change is absolutely necessary, or perhaps to be kind about it, that there are good reasons for the 10-day delay. Dan, or Colin, you go first.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I think, in a lot of ways, B2B businesses could benefit from a lot of automation in their processes. I think credit is always a tricky one because, one, depending on your company, you might have a product or a risk profile that's higher. You may not be able to sell your product directly to just whoever on the street because regulations, compliance issues, and some products can be actually used to make, we'll call them explosives or other types of products. So there may be a reason that you need to actually do that. Do I think that, the old style of, hey, fill out a PDF and email it to some obscure mailbox and someone will go back to you in 2 months? No, that's absurd. We need to get rid of that. But I think a fundamental revamp of the entire payment process and credit management process, it really just depends on who your customer is, how they can buy, and what you're selling.
Fair argument. I don't necessarily agree with it. It's a good argument though. So Dan, let's let you extend this. What would you say about this?
I think you want your customer to buy as fast as possible, right? But everyone wants to get something shipped to them and not pay for it. They don't want to pay for it for 30 days. They don't want to pay for it for 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. But when you're on a website, a B2B business, you're going to have strangers coming to you, companies that you don't know. And there's got to be some kind of process to vet them and say who they are. A lot of the times you might not have necessarily the purchaser that's on the website looking at the goods, right? You might have the engineer that's going to pass this information on, but maybe that engineer wants the parts today. Let them run their credit card. The credit card company is going to give them 30 days.
Well, actually, this is a good segue to the second part, our second question, which is about alternative payment methods. So you touched on it a little bit. I'm going to come back to you in a moment. So the question is, should B2B companies manage credit internally or rely more on alternative payment methods and next generation digital tools that outsource credit, such as PayPal, Affirm, Credit Key, companies like that, where you just mentioned, people want to get it now and pay for it later. So Dan, let's come to you first. What's been your experience here? I'm assuming you're going to say that you don't really think these alternatives are viable right now, but tell us.
How many payment gateways are too many payment gateways? I mean, I think there's all these different apps that people want to put on your checkout of your website, but that's all time and money to organize that and streamline it all on your system. Google wants to be your payment gateway. Amazon does. PayPal does. Do I start accepting Bitcoin?
Well, I just read today they're going to rename the Staples Center Crypto.com Center. No joke. They're paying $700 million for naming rights. So something's going right with the crypto stuff. It might all be a scam. I don't know.
There's bigger things to focus on.
Fair enough. So Dan, or I'm sorry, Colin, did you want to weigh in on this one?
No, I think Dan said it great. Just how many is too much? Where are you going to focus on? If you can do all this plus solve all your other issues, great. But you probably have more upstream issues, whether that's product data management or other digital experience optimizations that you get a whole heck of a lot more value for.
Priorities is always a good argument. So let's turn to Team Revolutionary and get their thoughts on this. I assume you're more interested here in pursuing some of these alternatives, Sylvia and Ricardo. So Sylvia, let's go to you first. I guess your argument's going to be you can walk and chew gum. You should be doing some of this stuff because probably, and I'm guessing, customers are interested in it. So
Yeah,
Sylvia,
absolutely. I was going to say, I think Colin and Dan made the argument for me. There's so many things you need to be doing, and should you really be focusing on something that PayPal has already figured out? I think you should outsource this kind of solutions and focus on the things that you need to focus on. Ricardo, you have anything to say on that?
Absolutely, well said. Mainly, like, you gotta let your customers speak. Do you want to waive opportunities to make more customers happy and more money, like, to your company for not taking on an additional payment gateway or an alternative method? Absolutely not. I'll tell you what, like, your fundamental traditional operations may be based like on how B2B companies are operating today. But the moment, for instance, you're expanding globally and you go to places where these alternative methods have actually become mainstream, like WeChat, like in China, you have to. So there is no other alternative other than graciously comply, right? And buy into these alternative methods to be better experience for your customers and better opportunities for you to grow.
well said. Well, the debate continues. I think this is what we'll be talking about in 5 to 10 years from now. And who knows, maybe we'll all be using Bitcoin by then, and who knows what is happening. But thank you, panelists, for joining. So Brian, I think we're going to go to the
let's bring up our last question here, poll question. Does the credit approval and management process in B2B need an overhaul? Yes or no? So you guys go ahead and vote. Andy, we'll talk a little bit about this. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think this is actually a secret weapon in B2B. Why? Right? And so I'm going to agree more with your team again on this one, unfortunately. But what I believe is that this is something that a company can implement that will actually allow their customer to more easily buy from them. And I believe they can do it in a way that is, because most of the industry is using antiquated process for this. They're using long credit approval processes. It's a lot of paperwork. You got to submit all this stuff, and then you got to wait forever to get approval to make a purchase. Guess what? I'm off, on Amazon Business buying because they're offering me credit terms, right, as a business buyer. So if you can, I believe you can capture competitive advantage. And I actually asked CreditKey for some data on this, Andy. I'm going to share a couple data points. Because what they do is they automate this process of credit approval and extend credit in real time, like instantly, to business buyers. So they have stats that show that 10x increase in AOV, right, on products that are used purchasing this method, and also the conversion rate increases of up to 250%. That means your customer is 250% more likely to buy if you're allowing them to get credit. Think about it, the distributors for years have used credit as a way to keep customers loyal, buying from them. It's a competitive tool. And so many companies are stuck in their old-fashioned ways around this. I believe some of the first to market with these tools can really actually convert this into a competitive advantage. What did you think?
Well, I'm going to agree with you, agreeing with me. No, I do think this is one of those processes that there are a few good reasons for, keeping it the way it is for tradition's sake, and maybe just to avoid, mistakes that have been made before. But there are far more reasons to reform it. And I think what we're seeing, I've been personally shocked at the success of companies like Affirm in the B2C space, where this buy now, pay for it later thing. It was layaway when we were kids. Right. But this is, if you can remove barriers and friction to people making a purchase, and this is a big and you can still get paid and not see defaults. This is where the advances, like Sylvia mentioned, in the technology are now here, and they're getting better with AI. Then it is something definitely worth doing.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, though, it isn't zero sum. Colin and Dan raised really good points. You do have to also, though, be careful with some of the purchase process. You don't necessarily, consider like a medical equipment or regulated FDA regulated products that have, that you need a license, a medical or dental license to buy. There are legitimate workflows in B2B where there's necessity to take time in that approval account and credit approval process, because you want to make sure that they're legitimate buyers. That said, there's so much AI being applied now, CreditKey and others. You mentioned Affirm in the consumer space. This is proven, guys, and this is something that B2B companies can use today. So I appreciate everyone's comments on that. I think it's valid. So we are now at the time where we need to go to a closing argument. We're going to bring Sylvia back onto the screen, and we're going to hear a little bit from her on some final thoughts on these issues. Can you convert these profit killers into competitive advantages? Sylvia, the floor is yours. You have 2 minutes.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Are you going to have a clock for me? Just kidding.
No, we'll trust you.
So, I mean, I think all of us said, maybe I'm going to be repetitive. Technology is your best friend at this point, right? I mean, to have a competitive advantage in B2B, you have to bring in technology, and you have to know what you are doing when you are expanding an omni-channel solution. I mean, we get questions all the time about companies expanding to e-commerce and doing B2B when they were traditionally only doing different kind of selling through ERP, older ERP systems. If you don't step up to the plate and introduce technology, then you are not going to have a competitive advantage. And then on top of that, I'm going to bring the sales tax. You know, Avalara is well known for the sales tax solutions, but I don't bring it as an advertisement. I bring it because it's necessary. With the new law changes that happen, a lot of folks do not understand that the requirements have changed. And so one of the big takeaways that I want to give everybody here, and I always do this with my presentations as well, is go do your homework. You know, are you actually doing the right thing when it comes to Nexus? And we brought up Nexus. You know, are you doing the right thing for your organization by expanding an omni-channel and not connecting the dots to your ERP system when it comes down to a tax solution? Are you collecting the right documentation to make your customers happy, you know, right up front rather than later? So I think this is a lot of good things that you have to think through. And a lot of the time it changes processes internally in an organization. So I say be proactive, talk to whoever you need to talk to make those changes, and be more proactive in making an overall organizational change to really make that competitive advantage happen to you.
Great. Thank you, Sylvia. Great comments. And I appreciate, particularly appreciate the sort of the take action and the leadership necessary, because I do find that to be an area where companies in B2B, they're not willing to confront some of the uncomfortable tasks of bringing digital transformation to their business. So appreciate that. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for your participation today. All right, Andy, I think it's time now for the decision. That is so awesome. I love it. All right. Before we get to our poll results, let's talk a little bit about some of these takeaways. You know, kind of summarize, Andy, what you think our practitioners today can use from from our discussion that we just had.
Well, you know, I'll just go with the taxes one to begin with, which is I think you can't really play games with that. It's better to be honest up front, because the most important thing, and this is to me the essence of a brand, and we talked about this a couple on webinars ago, and I'll just keep repeating it, is trust. The companies, your buyers have to trust you. It's one thing that you can spend a lifetime earning and 5 minutes losing. And so this is really critical. I think on the shipping front, expectations are ever rising. We're not going to be able to change that. I do think we established 5 years from now, this is going to be embedded in it. Nobody's going to be talking about it as being separate. But I think there's a lot of price elasticity in the B2B space. I think this point was made by Dan and also Colin. I think rightly so, that, hey, not everything should be shipped free. If it's going to weigh a lot, if it's something that people are expecting to wait a few days on, why do you have to rush something that nobody really wants to be rushed? And in terms of the credit stuff, it's a broken system for sure. I mean, companies are leaving money on the table. You made that point. Look at, for example, the services revenue that companies like Apple are now generating. You know, this has become a significant source of revenue for them. And I think these are the kinds of things that smart B2B companies that want to not be commoditized should be doing. Services revenue, credit's one of them.
We got a comment in here from Jason Hine, B2B, you know, him from our B2B evangelist from Bloomery. She said part of why many distributors still charge for shipping is because they are selling trust that they can get it to their customers in time for the job. And then Stephanie Pike, who was one of our contenders, she's the VP of Ecom at Ingram Micro. She also chimed in here, Andy. She said a distribution is actually about selling trust, and with complex models pulling in products and services from a variety of suppliers, Isn't that one of the primary value propositions of the distributor? Interesting. So distributors, you're selling trust. And to Andy's point, these things, if you're building trust through that e-commerce process by disclosing, sharing tax, shipping, et cetera, making the credit process easier, guess what? You win share from your competitors. You're more trusted. So love that. We need to go to our poll results. Let's go ahead and bring those up. The first question answered was, can tax collection be turned into a competitive advantage? No. Okay. All right. 57% said no. Got it.
I think this is because people have a different view. They look at it as a cost of doing business. And you know what? They used to look at shipping and everything else that way too. So watch out. This could change.
Yeah. Round two. Let's go to that question. Is Amazon Prime like fast shipping experience necessary in B2B commerce? And 60% said no.
You know what? This is interesting because I think you can make cases for both. So I would split the difference too. We just talked about that.
You can. Yeah. And then round three, does the credit approval need an overhaul? 77% says yes. Okay. Sorry, credit departments, but it sounds like things might be changed in terms of what's happening there. So guys, so thank you all for voting and participating. We got a couple important announcements here before we break. We have some upcoming, number one, there's going to be an on-demand link for this on webinar that'll be emailed to you if you participated today. So make sure you look for that. And we'll be reviewing the questions. We got a bunch more questions and comments that came in. We'll be reviewing those soon. Andy, any final words before we wrap?
Yeah, that was a great debate. I mean, the reality is you can make arguments on both sides. That's why we do this. We want to make sure you understand both sides of the argument. In some cases, you've heard Brian and I kind of dither on these things because we're not 100% convinced of the side we've adopted. But this is reality, right? It's not black and white. It's gray. But you have to understand, you see the gray better when you see the black and white. So that's why we do these. And the one in December around channel conflict will be, once again, a really, really good one to close out the year.
Excellent. Thank you to our panelists today. Thank you. And again, we'll see you guys next time on the next webinar.